What if I told you that every time you react emotionally, you give someone else the remote control to your mind? Imagine living in a world where one rude comment, one unexpected setback, or one impulsive message could wreck your entire day. Now look around. That world is the one we live in. People are prisoners of their own emotions. Their peace is stolen by tweets. Their confidence is shattered by criticism. And their sense of power vanishes at the slightest offense. But what if you could change that? What if you could build a kind of inner strength that makes you immune? Not cold, not heartless, but untouchable. The Stoics believed you could. And today, we're going to uncover the forgotten secrets of emotional control. The kind that leads not just to calm, but to real, unshakable power. If you want to stop reacting and start mastering your emotions, this may be the most important video you ever watch. Why emotional control is the real superpower. In a world where emotions are constantly weaponized by media, politics, relationships, and even our own thoughts, the ability to stay calm is no longer just admirable, it's essential. People today are praised for being authentic and speaking their truth. But too often, that truth is impulsive, emotional chaos disguised as honesty. We lash out when we're hurt, we overreact when we're insecure, and we make decisions not from clarity, but from fear, ego, or anger. The result? Broken relationships, lost opportunities, and a life ruled by forces we don't even understand. That's where Stoicism comes in. Not as some ancient philosophy for dusty scrolls, but as a modern, practical system for emotional mastery. The Stoics taught that power lies not in controlling the world, but in controlling your reaction to it. And if you can train yourself to pause, to think, to respond with intention instead of emotion, you become free. Truly free. This video is your guide to that freedom. A deep dive into the Stoic secrets that can transform your emotional life from fragile to formidable. The cost of emotional reactivity in the modern world. In the modern world, emotional reactivity is not just a personal weakness. It's a liability that affects every area of your life. We live in an age of instant response, endless notifications, and algorithm-driven outrage. The world is wired to provoke you. Social media platforms profit when you're angry, anxious, or envious. News outlets don't care about your peace of mind. They care about your clicks, and fear sells faster than facts. In this environment, emotional control isn't just self-improvement, it's survival. But most people don't realize how high the cost of emotional reactivity truly is until it's too late. At work, reacting emotionally can sabotage your professional reputation. One emotional outburst, one passive-aggressive email, one meeting where you let your frustrations bleed through, that can permanently shape how others perceive you. Emotional intelligence isn't just a buzzword. It's what separates those who lead from those who are led by their moods. Employers trust people who stay calm under pressure. Colleagues respect those who respond, not react. In a chaotic environment, the person who can keep their composure becomes the most powerful presence in the room. But when you can't control your emotional state, you become volatile, unpredictable, and easy to manipulate. A pawn in someone else's game. In relationships, the damage of emotional reactivity is even more devastating. Most relationship conflicts aren't about what happened. They're about how people reacted to what happened. One careless insult spoken in anger can leave a scar that takes years to heal. One moment of jealousy, insecurity, or rage can undo months of trust. People who react emotionally tend to dominate conversations, over-explain themselves, or shut down completely. They seek control by expressing emotion, not understanding it. But love doesn't grow in chaos. It grows in presence, in steadiness, in the ability to hold space for discomfort without flinching. And yet, most people are emotionally fragile. They can't handle silence, disagreement, or not getting their way without turning it into a crisis. Even in our personal lives, emotional reactivity robs us of clarity and peace. It clouds our judgment. When you're ruled by your emotions, you can't think critically. You can't separate what feels true from what is true. You get caught in mental loops, overthinking, spiraling, obsessing over how someone looked at you or what they said in a text. You become emotionally dependent on the reactions of others. You chase validation and approval to feel safe. And worst of all, you make major life decisions. What to buy, where to live, who to date, based not on values, but on temporary feelings. This leads to regret, resentment, and a feeling of being trapped in a life you didn't consciously choose. The Stoics understood this danger centuries ago. Epictetus warned, "It's not things that disturb us, but our opinions about things." In modern terms, that means it's not the world that causes your pain. It's your reaction to the world. A rude driver doesn't ruin your day. Your anger about the rude driver ruins your day. A breakup doesn't break you. Your attachment to the illusion of control over another person does. The Stoics didn't deny emotions. They just refused to be ruled by them. They trained their minds the way a warrior trains his reflexes. Not to react immediately, but to respond wisely. Today, we call this mindfulness, but Stoicism taught it long before it was trendy. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome and one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, wrote in his private journal, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That's not just philosophy. That's a practical operating system for life. If you can develop the skill of noticing your emotional reaction before acting on it, even just a few seconds of space between trigger and response, you can reclaim your power. You can protect your energy, choose your battles, and live in alignment with your values instead of your moods. But why is emotional reactivity so common today? Because society rewards it. Outrage gets attention. Victimhood brings sympathy. Drama goes viral. People mistake passion for wisdom and volume for truth. But behind every emotional outburst is usually a wound, a fear of not being seen, not being respected, not being loved. Emotional reactivity is often a trauma response masquerading as strength. But Stoicism teaches us a higher form of strength, the ability to stay grounded when everything around you is shaking. Not numb, not indifferent, but composed, like a mountain in a storm. The cost of not learning this skill is a life of turbulence. You'll find yourself constantly overwhelmed, constantly overthinking, constantly regretting what you said or didn't say. Your peace will be fragile, always depending on others behaving how you want them to. And worst of all, you'll remain a slave to the very emotions you think define you. True freedom isn't the ability to do whatever you feel like. It's the ability to not be controlled by what you feel. In the modern world, emotional reactivity is the default setting, but Stoicism offers an upgrade. It teaches you to slow down, to observe, to question your assumptions. It gives you tools to strengthen your mind and widen the gap between stimulus and response. It reminds you that your emotions are messengers, not masters. If you want to live with more peace, clarity, and personal power, learning to stop reacting emotionally is not optional. It's essential. The cost of not mastering your emotions is too high. It's paid in broken trust, wasted time, and inner chaos. But the reward of emotional mastery? That's where the Stoic path leads. To stillness, to strength, and to the kind of freedom no one can take from you. The Stoic philosophy of emotional mastery. To understand the Stoic philosophy of emotional mastery, you have to start with a radical idea. Emotions are not uncontrollable forces that happen to us. They are judgments, evaluations of reality that we've accepted without question. That's what separates Stoicism from almost every modern view of psychology and emotional health. While modern culture often tells us to express our feelings or follow our heart, the Stoics asked us to interrogate our emotions, to examine whether our feelings are based on truth or on false expectations and irrational fears. And that's the heart of emotional mastery in Stoicism. Not suppression, but understanding. Not avoidance, but alignment with reason and virtue. The Stoics saw the mind as a tool. And like any tool, it needs sharpening. They believe that your ability to master your emotions depends entirely on your ability to master your thoughts. Epictetus, a former slave turned philosopher, put it simply, "We are disturbed not by events, but by the views which we take of them. If you interpret an insult as a personal attack, you'll get angry. If you interpret it as ignorance or immaturity, you might stay calm." The emotion is the consequence of the interpretation. So the Stoics focused not on fixing feelings, but on fixing perceptions. This is where the Stoic concept of the dichotomy of control becomes essential. According to Epictetus, everything in life can be divided into two categories: the things you can control and the things you cannot. What can you control? Your thoughts, your values, your choices, and your reactions. What can't you control? Everything else, including other people's opinions, events in the world, and even your own body to some extent. The Stoic secret to emotional mastery lies in focusing your energy only on what you can control. When you stop wasting energy trying to control what you can't, your emotions begin to settle. Your mind becomes clearer. Your reactions become deliberate instead of automatic. Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor who ruled during one of the most turbulent times in Roman history, kept a personal journal filled with reflections on emotional discipline. He reminded himself daily, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment." That's not denial. It's power. It means you don't have to be at the mercy of every trigger, every critic, every failure. You can choose how to interpret events. You can choose how to respond. And in that space of choice lies your freedom. But Stoicism isn't just about individual willpower. It's grounded in a moral vision of life. The Stoics believed that the goal of life was to live in accordance with nature, which for them meant living with rationality, courage, justice, and self-discipline. Emotions like fear, anger, jealousy, and pride are disturbances of the soul, signals that you're out of alignment with your highest self. When you act on these emotions blindly, you betray your nature as a rational being. But when you observe them, learn from them, and act with intention, you fulfill your nature and become truly human. This is why the Stoics made a clear distinction between path and eupathii. Path were the irrational passions, the destructive emotions like rage, panic, and despair. These arise from false beliefs and distorted thinking. Eupathii, on the other hand, were the healthy emotional states that flow from wisdom, like joy in doing what's right, caution in the face of danger, and serenity when things don't go your way. Emotional mastery for the Stoics wasn't about becoming a robot. It was about transforming unhealthy emotions into healthy ones, by aligning your thoughts with virtue and truth. And how do you actually do that in practice? Through constant self-reflection. The Stoics were obsessed with training the mind. They didn't wait for a crisis to test their philosophy. They rehearsed adversity daily. They wrote in journals. They asked themselves hard questions. What am I afraid of, and why? What did I get angry about today? And was it worth it? What assumptions am I making that lead to suffering? This daily mental discipline is what prepared them for the emotional storms of life. Seneca, a wealthy Roman senator and advisor to Nero, wrote extensively about managing anger, fear, and grief. He advised practicing voluntary discomfort, sleeping on the floor, eating simple food, facing public shame, to build emotional toughness. Why? Because if you've already imagined the worst and accepted it, then you're free. You're no longer ruled by the fear of loss. You can think clearly. You can act with courage and composure. And when real hardship comes, as it always does, you're not shocked or broken. You're ready. One of the greatest misconceptions about Stoicism is that it's about suppressing emotions. It's not. It's about elevating them, refining them through reason. It's about becoming the kind of person who feels deeply, but doesn't get tossed around by every wave, who can face pain and still choose virtue, who can be insulted and still respond with dignity, who can suffer loss and still remain whole. This level of emotional mastery doesn't happen overnight. It's a lifelong discipline, but the rewards are profound. When you train your mind to focus on what you can control, to question your interpretations, and to choose virtue over impulse, you gain an inner fortress. The world becomes less threatening. People's opinions lose their grip. Setbacks become teachers, and you begin to walk through life with a quiet strength that nothing can shake. In a culture obsessed with expressing every feeling, Stoicism invites you to examine your feelings. In a world that teaches you to follow your emotions, Stoicism teaches you to lead them. It's not about denying your humanity. It's about mastering it. Because when you can master your emotions, you master your life. And in the end, that's what real power looks like. Not control over others, but control over yourself. Practicing the pause. How to create space between trigger and reaction. In a world wired for speed, where reactions are instant and attention spans are shrinking, the Stoic practice of pausing feels revolutionary. Yet this small, simple act, taking a breath between what happens and how you respond, may be one of the most powerful tools for self-mastery ever conceived. The Stoics understood this intuitively, long before neuroscience would confirm it. They knew that between the stimulus and the response lies a sacred space, a moment where your character is forged. And it's in this pause, this tiny sliver of silence, that the difference between chaos and calm, regret and resolve can be found. Think of it. Someone insults you, cuts you off in traffic, ignores your message, or delivers bad news. The average person flares up instantly, consumed by emotion, losing control, losing clarity, becoming a slave to the moment. But the Stoic doesn't. The Stoic pauses. This is not avoidance or suppression. It's the deliberate use of time as a shield, a mental buffer that gives your higher self the chance to speak before your lower impulses hijack your behavior. It's the mental version of stepping back from the fire so you don't get burned. Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor and arguably the most powerful man of his time, journaled daily about his inner battles. He reminded himself to wait for the right moment, to be like the cliff against which the waves continually break, and to remember that no man can make you feel inferior without your consent. Those weren't just pretty words, they were mental shields, practices designed to pause his reaction, to filter emotion through reason, and to act, not react. In today's context, that pause might look like breathing slowly when someone yells at you, or counting backward when you're about to send that angry email, or going for a walk before making a decision in a heated argument. It's refusing to be rushed by the world. It's giving yourself the power to respond on purpose. Because once you react emotionally, you give up your freedom. You've handed control over to the world, to your past wounds, to your ego. The pause reclaims that freedom. And it's not just spiritual, it's biological. Modern science now backs what the Stoics knew intuitively. Our brains are wired with a primitive emotional system that reacts to threat or discomfort before our rational mind even kicks in. The amygdala fires before the prefrontal cortex gets a chance to weigh in. But that delay, those few precious seconds, is where the practice lives. The pause is not passive. It's not just sitting there doing nothing. It's a strategic act of power. In those few seconds, you ask questions like, What story am I telling myself right now? Is this situation within my control? What would a wise person do here? That moment of awareness weakens the emotional flood and strengthens the rational mind. It's where Stoicism becomes real. Not on the page, but in practice. Epictetus put it bluntly. If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. That's the whole game. It's not about them. It's about whether you allow them to push your buttons. The pause lets you become aware of those buttons and slowly disarm them. With enough practice, you start to feel it, that growing space between trigger and reaction. You notice anger rising, but you don't get swept away. You see the insult, but it doesn't stick. You feel the sting of criticism, but you process it instead of exploding. That space is your fortress. That space is where you choose your response based on values, not emotions. The Stoics called this prohairesis, your capacity to choose, your inner citadel. No one can take that away from you. And the more you practice the pause, the stronger it becomes. But it's not easy. In fact, it's one of the hardest disciplines because it asks you to go against your programming. It asks you to feel the anger but not act on it, to notice the fear but not obey it, to acknowledge the pain but not let it dictate your behavior. It's emotional alchemy. And the practice begins with awareness. You have to catch yourself in the moment, not afterward when the damage is done. That's why Stoics practice daily journaling and evening reflection. They didn't just wait for life to teach them lessons. They trained their minds to anticipate triggers and respond wisely. In the morning, they'd prepare for adversity. Today I will meet people who are selfish, rude, jealous. In the evening, they'd review their actions. Where did I react? Where did I hold the line? These rituals created mental grooves, habits of thought that made pausing feel natural over time. Eventually, the pause becomes a part of you. It shows up automatically, like armor. Someone throws shade at you online. Pause. A coworker takes credit for your work. Pause. A family member tries to guilt-trip you. Pause. In that pause, you remind yourself of who you are, of what you value, of what you stand for. And you act from that place, not from impulse. That's what it means to be a Stoic. Not cold or emotionless, but fiercely committed to self-control and inner strength. Not numb, but wise. Because power is not in dominating others. It's in mastering yourself. And in a world that's constantly pushing your buttons, that pause is the ultimate act of rebellion. It's how you reclaim your peace in a noisy world. It's how you remain unbroken in a chaotic life. It's how you become untouchable. Not by running away from emotion, but by turning it into your teacher. The space between trigger and reaction is the forge of the Stoic warrior. Guard it, train it, live in it. Because in that space, you don't just survive, you rise. Stop reacting emotionally. Stoic secrets to inner power. You've made it this far, which means something in you is ready to change, to stop letting the world dictate your emotions, and to start reclaiming your power from within. Because here's the truth. Life isn't going to slow down. People will still test your patience. Circumstances will still catch you off guard. But you now have a choice that most never realize they have. The ability to pause, to think, to respond instead of react. That's the essence of Stoicism. It's not about suppressing your feelings. It's about understanding them, mastering them, and rising above them. Marcus Aurelius didn't write to sound wise. He wrote to survive, to lead, to live without losing himself in the chaos. And now, you can do the same. Start small. Reflect daily. Ask yourself where you give away your power, and begin to close those gaps. Every emotional reaction is a lesson in disguise. A chance to train, to grow, to evolve. So don't just watch this video and move on. Do something with what you've learned. Practice the pause. Question your impulses. Build your inner citadel brick by brick. Because the world doesn't need more noise. It needs more clarity. And that starts with you. If this message spoke to you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment below with your biggest takeaway, and let's build a stronger community. One grounded in peace, not panic. And don't forget to subscribe for more Stoic wisdom that cuts through the chaos. Remember, real power isn't loud. It's calm, and it's yours to claim. If you're brave enough to stop reacting and start living with intention, if you're tired of being controlled by your emotions and ready to take full command of your inner life, now is the time to act. Start by implementing just one Stoic habit today. Maybe it's journaling tonight. Maybe it's pausing before you react tomorrow. Whatever it is, commit to it. And if this video gave you clarity or strength, share it with someone who needs that same power. Drop a comment below and tell us, what's one emotional trigger you're ready to master? Let's create a space for real change, together. And don't forget to subscribe, because every week we dive deeper into Stoic wisdom to help you live with unshakable calm and focused strength. You've spent enough time reacting. Now it's your time to respond with purpose.